Hi, in this video we are going to look at comparatives and superlatives while we learn about a compound machine that I am very sure that you are familiar with. Before we do that, please let me ask you to please match each of the following words with the parts numbered in the picture, right? Look at the picture, look at the numbers of the parts that are there indicated by the numbers, and which of these words correspond to each of those parts numbered there. All right, think about it for a moment, complete the activity, and I'll show you the answers in a moment. All right, good. So what is this? What is number one? That is a pedal. What's number two? Yes, that is called a crank arm. It looks like an arm. What are these? Number three, gears. Yes, pay attention to the pronunciation of gears. And this number four is chain. And number five is rubber. Yes, rubber. Good. We are now ready to read the following text about how a bicycle works. Yes, you already knew what the compound machine was because we were talking about those. We were looking at those parts indicated in the picture, of course. Now, we are going to read this and we're going to see something very technical about this, but let's see how that technicality that we are discussing here applies in real life, because in the end, I would like for you to reflect on how we can change the perspective that we have about this machine. Actually, it is a machine, and how it may affect our life or what we think about it, and we'll see later the implications of this vehicle in life, the environment, etc. All right, let's read together. How does a bicycle work? That is a very good question. I never thought about that in detail. A bicycle works by converting the energy produced by our pedaling into kinetic energy. Ooh, nice. So our energy is transformed into kinetic energy. That is movement, kinetic energy. Our force moves a set of elements that ultimately allow the displacement of the bicycle. All right, so with our energy, with our force, we move some elements and now the bicycle moves. All right. When the rider applies pressure on the pedals, all right, so we push them, that force moves the crank arm. All right, the pedal transmits the force to the crank arm, which turns the chain gear. All right, that's the chain gear. The chain, that would be the chain, then turns the gear wheel, so there is a wheel there in the back, and as a result, the back wheel spins. That is a very nice process. The friction between the rubber of the wheel and the ground, oh yes, that resistance, because there is resistance there, thus pushes the bicycle forward. I'm gonna confess, when I read this first, as I was looking at this lesson, I thought that was a very complex process, but now that I read it with you, it's much simpler than I thought. I hope that you think so too. But let me ask you some questions to make sure that you understood the basic events that took place here. What do you think about the process that makes a bicycle move? Or in general, what do you think about that process? My question is very simple. Was it simpler or more complex than you thought? All right, so that is actually the most important question here. I am not going to ask you to explain back to me how that works, because that involves the use of some very specialized vocabulary, at least for me. But I want you to think about this. Was it easier or more difficult? Simpler or more complex? Give me the answer. It was probably a little bit more complex, right? And that is what I would like for us to use as a connection between this text about machines, which is the theme of these videos, and into the topic of comparative and superlative. If it is simpler or more complex, we are comparing two things and we are determining one has more or less of that characteristic of simplicity. So let's see some examples of comparisons and superlatives, thinking about machines and materials that may be used in machines or in vehicles that we may use for transportation or to move around. Let's see. We may have comparisons involving adjectives. That is the one that we are most familiar with. For example, when we say iron is heavier than aluminum. All right, the adjective is heavy. If we compare that heaviness, we think that iron has more of that characteristic than aluminum. That's why we say iron is heavier than aluminum. So the key for us to determine if heavier is expressed in this way, as we can see here with this ER here, it's analyzing what happens to heavy when we express that comparison. We have two options. One is adding ER, like in this case, or as in the next example, we are going to have the choice of adding the word more. We cannot say iron is more heavy than aluminum, is more heavy, because when we add ER to the adjective heavier, it has only two syllables. That is our key. All right? When we add ER to an adjective, it still has two syllables, heavier. That is enough for us to use ER. Otherwise, we may have to use more. All right? Let me show you how that more works in the next example. Oh, wait, let me point at something here. When we are using comparisons, we use this word than here. Than is the preposition that connects what is being compared to what was mentioned in the first place. All right, let's look at the next one. Birds fly more slowly than airplanes. All right, here we are comparing the action of flying or we're talking about the action of flying, and we say how we are flying. We fly slowly. For expressing that speed, we use the adverb slowly. How fast the bird flies. All right? So we're going to say the bird flies more slowly. We cannot say slowlier, because that would be three syllables, slowlier. So we cannot say, we cannot express that relationship of being more slowly than the other one with ER, because the resulting adverb might have three syllables, and that is not acceptable. We have to use then, in that case, more. Birds fly more slowly than airplanes. All right, good. Now, we may also have expressions of comparisons that involve nouns, like in this sentence. I have more free time on the weekend than during weekdays. So we're talking about free time. That is a noun, free time. We can express that relationship of comparison between the weekend and weekdays in terms of having free time, and for that we are always going to use more. There is no way of adding ER when we are comparing nouns. Be careful with that. So we would say I have more free time on the weekend than during weekdays. All right? Next, we're going to talk about the involvement of gerunds. Gerunds are words that end in ing. Those words are formed from a verb that ends in ing. For example, when we have the word send, or the verb send, ending in ing, sending, that is an action that is being referred to by using that gerund. Sending a voice message, that is considered as a unit, sending a voice message is easier than typing. In that case, we are referring to the gerund, and for the comparison, we are using the adjective easy. So in that case, easy has 2 syllables. When we add er, easier, so we are using er for that and not more. We cannot say more easy. No. Easier than typing. So we may have comparisons in sentences that have a gerund. And one more detail about comparisons, we may have double comparative in some sentences. What does that mean? When we have more and more in 2 parts of the sentence. Let me give you an example because otherwise it will be harder to understand abstractly. The more you practice, the better you will become at any skill. When we say that one action influences another, in English we describe that relationship with the double comparative. In that case, we're saying the more you practice, the better you will become. You will see that independently of whether we are using an adjective or an adverb. We just have to use the comparative form of each adjective or adverb involved in that relationship. So in this case, we're saying practice, that is an action, the more you practice, and then you will say the better you will become, because you cannot say the more good you become, you say the better you will become. When you say the easier or the lighter the traffic, the faster you will get. When the traffic is light, you will get there fast. The lighter the traffic, the faster you will get. That will be also an instance of double comparative. Right, and I know that you know about this topic, the superlative, but let me just give you an example and of how we use it, and then we move on to some practice, okay? Man on a bicycle is the most energy effective means of transportation. Wow, that is actually a fact. That is more efficient than any creature on earth. Man on a bicycle is the most energy effective means. So it is a means, and when we are saying that of all the means of transportation, man on a bicycle is the most energy effective, we are using the superlative because we are highlighting one element out of a group of 3 or more. When we are comparing, we just have 2 things involved. But when we have 3 or more elements involved in the comparison, we use the superlative, right? And the superlative has these characteristics. It has the word the, and it has the word most, or the ending est that you're familiar with, to express that relationship of superlative. One out of a group of 3 or more. All right, the most energy effective means of transportation. All right, let's put that into practice with this activity. You are going to write 5 sentences about bicycles, these compound machines, using comparatives and superlatives. And you can use the following keywords for you to think about relationships of comparison or superlative. For example, walking, you can compare a bicycle, riding a bicycle to walking. A car, can you compare the 2 vehicles? A motorcycle, how are they different? A train, you're riding a bicycle, you're riding a train. Vehicles for moving around. Of all the vehicles, I gave you away the answer. What I want there is a superlative. Of all the vehicles for moving around, what happens to the bicycle? All right, what can you say about it? I want you to think about it for a moment. Think about what you could say about the bicycle using those keywords, and I will show you some sample answers in a moment. All right, I hope that you did complete the activity. Let me show you some sample answers. Of course, they will not be the same as yours, but they can give you an idea about using comparatives and superlatives, especially comparatives, to talk about the bicycle and the keywords that I gave you. You can move faster when you are riding a bicycle than when you are walking. Nice. We have some gerund there, and you say that you're moving faster. Yes, fast, faster. 2 syllables, we use er. Very good. Next, riding a bicycle is healthier than driving a car. Riding a bicycle is healthier. So that's another gerund, and healthy is the adjective used there. Good. Healthier. Good. Next, a motorcycle produces more pollution than a bicycle. That's very nice. because we are using nouns in the comparison. More pollution than a bicycle. Great. Next, you can enjoy the scenery better on a bicycle than in a car. This is very good. You can enjoy the scenery better. Good. Finally, cycling. Oh, not the bicycle. Well, cycling. I like this. Cycling is the most popular way of moving around in some European cities. Nice. Yes, there are some cities in which people bicycle to work and then they take the train and then they go back home on a bicycle. Great. I want you to practice your pronunciation now. So I'm going to have you listen to the native speaker, and as she pronounces these sentences, you are going to practice your own pronunciation. All right? Listen to her and practice, please.
You can move faster when you are riding a bicycle than when you are walking. Riding a bicycle is healthier than driving a car. A motorcycle produces more pollution than a bicycle. You can enjoy the scenery better on a bicycle than in a car. Cycling is the most popular way of moving around in some European cities.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for having pronounced those sentences, and especially for remembering that we can use comparisons and superlatives to establish relationships between two things that we want to compare or highlight out of a group of 3 or more. All right? Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.